Do you love clean and simple design, but want some ideas to take your cards to the next level? Or are you someone who loves products and techniques and would love to make a clean and simple card, but you never know when to stop? Either way, today's video is for you. Justine, Laurel, and I are all exploring the ideas of how clear space and the color white are used in card design. So there's a ton of inspiration for you in this little 3-stop mini hop. I've put the links below in the description for you. Now let's get started. I love clean cards with tons of white space, but sometimes I want to add something more without impacting the clean and airy feel. Here's the ultimate in clean and simple design. A 1-layer card with one focal image and one sentiment. You can start here and easily add interest with a black pen and a doodled frame. I start by checking which pen has a similar line weight to my pretty pink Posh flower image and sentiment, because that will make it look more like it's part of the design. Then I really freehanded it, and as I watch it now, of course I figured out an easier way to get it fairly even. Start by drawing a dot in each of the 4 corners, inset from the corner of the card by whatever amount you want. Mine is about 1/4 inch. Then connect the 4 dots. If you move your pen with your whole arm, the line will be pretty straight, but a hand-drawn look will go well with the stamps I've used. You could add little dots or crosshatch marks if you want to take it further. And of course, if you want, you can get a ruler out and use that for perfectly straight lines. A second way to add interest is to add some stickles to the flower centers. I have loved stickles for as long as I've been card making, although I do keep it just to the clear ones these days. It's an easy, mess-free way to add glitter to small places, but you do need a little while for it to dry. 1-layer cards are the ultimate in minimal design, and they're easy to mail, but they can be unforgiving as far as placement or smudges. Plus, they don't really let you show off all your cool techniques or embellishments, so let's move on. The next idea is to add another type of frame to my card. This time I'm using one of the Essentials for Stitching Squares dies from Elle and Hutson. It doesn't cut the square, just the stitching holes around it, and it's a great way to add some interest to my card. Idea number 4 is to die cut the image and pop it up. This adds simple dimension and a bit of a shadow. When I'm popping up odd shapes like this, I like to trim my foam tape to a similar shape and get lots of coverage so the image is well supported. You could use craft foam if you have it and the die to get perfect support. And of course, having the image cut out allows you to kind of play around with placement until you're happy with it. This time I placed it in the center, making sure I had enough room underneath for my sentiment, which I stamped with VersaFine Onyx ink and my Misty. Now this card is pretty and that frame gives some definition, but having those little holes looking into the inside of the card gives you another option for adding some interest, and that's adding color to the inside. I chose Chiffon ink from Catherine Pooler, which is a pale yellow and the complementary color to my purple flowers. I masked off the front of the card and I blended it on the inside with a large blending brush from Ultinew. This gives you a very subtle look from the outside and a nice bright surprise on the inside. So far, we haven't really added any layers to the card base, but that's about to change. I'm cutting a square panel with a circle cut out from the center. This circle die is also from Elle and Hutson, and it cuts a narrow frame around the circle, which we're going to use 2 ways. Idea number 5 is to leave that narrow frame out of the square/circle panel, pop them both up with foam tape, and create a negative space frame around my focal area. Idea 6 is an extension of adding stickles or embellishing the card. This time I'm using some white pearl jewels from Pretty Pink Posh. Generally, I like to use jewels to frame my sentiment, and I put 3 in a triangle underneath and 2 on top, using 2 of the smallest sizes of gems. Idea 7 is now to use that narrow frame that I created in the last card as a positive die cut. I cut another one as well so that I can have a double frame. I used liquid glue and tiny dots to adhere them directly to the card base, doing my best to be sure that they're equally spaced all around. And then I added stickles to both of the frames. This will add sparkle, of course, but it also adds a bit more dimension to the frames. I added stickles to the flower centers here as well. For idea 8, I created a small square white panel, and I'm going to use the Lattice stencil to emboss it. I've been playing around with my sandwiches lately, and I plan to do a video about what sandwich to use when. It can be so hard to keep it straight when there are so many techniques you can do with dies, stencils, embossing folders, and your die cutting machine. And one of the bonuses of dry embossing, of course, is that you can use either side. I was amazed at how different the two sides looked on this one. There were some slight smudges on the back from the black embossing mat, but they came up easily with a regular eraser. That bumpy background meant that I needed a way to add my sentiment, and I used a sentiment strip popped up over the diamonds and ending just underneath the flower pot. I added 3 more little white jewels on the end of the strip to finish it off. Idea number 9 is to add interest to the background panel by cutting, then inlaying a piece into it. I used this curved stitch die from Pretty Pink Posh, and I cut it from the square white panel. You could lay it back in just like this, and the stitching and cut edges would add interest, but I added even more by spritzing the die cut piece with shimmer spray and letting it dry. I used regular Scotch tape to put the panel back together, and now I have a square background with a shimmery curve. You could change this up by coloring the curve yellow like the flowers, but of course for this video I'm keeping these cards quite white. Everyone has their own definition of clean and simple design, but one common theme is the use of white or clear space. Now that I've given you tons of ideas for adding interest to your white space, it's time to head to Laurel, who has ideas for incorporating white into masculine card design. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time!